CBS reports Watts' riot or revolt continues.
Which side are you on? Let me hear you now. Which side are you on, boy? Which side are you on?
As the Pitts march and the tension in Watts continued, we asked Muslim leader John Shabazz if more violence is in prospect.
I certainly believe that it will happen again unless some steps are taken to prevent it. And the reason that I believe this, and the reason this is voiced throughout the community, and I have my ear to the ground in the community, is that what has changed? There has been nothing done. Every grievance that was had by the people who who started this thing or who took part in it, there has been nothing done to solve it. The only thing that was done was that massive forces were brought in to suppress the actual overt action. But there has been nothing done to solve it.
In an effort to find a solution, Governor Brown announced the formation of an 8-man commission to investigate fully the causes of the disaster. John McCone, former head of the Central Intelligence Agency, was named chairman. The committee hearings have not been public, but the principal witnesses are known, and so are some of their views. Chief of Police William H. Parker.
A great deal of the courage that these rioters possessed was based upon the continuous attacks by their civil rights organizations upon the police, and the constant harassment, police brutality, police brutality, police brutality, and the attempt of the police to accommodate to the situation that gave them the sense that we have these people on the run now. We don't have to really fear the police very much because they're in a defensive position. Now, in addition to that, you have this, what I call political pandering, where they're constantly trying to reach these groups for political balance of power by catering to their emotions. You're dislocated, you're abused because of your color, your progenitors were oppressed, you haven't been given the share of materialistic things you're entitled to. And you're trying to convince them, well, you're not well off, I'm going to do something for you. I'm going to raise you out of this position of post-slavery to a position of economic affluency. And, of course, many of these people in our present system are not in a position to set into the economy and become affluent unless somebody just hands it to them. Actually, many Negro leaders agree with me that Los Angeles is the finest place in the world for the Negro because he has the greatest opportunity here on a broad basis than he will anywhere else in the world. So you have this paradox where things are the best is where the worst riot occurred. And I think you have to go back to civil disobedience. You don't have to obey the law if you think it's unjust. In other words, you say, well, a certain law is unjust because it's a Jim Crow law. On the other hand, is the law unjust because I want a pair of shoes and they're in that store and I haven't got the money to buy them, so I can steal them. In fact, it was amazing that in that inquiry we had in the council, when the councilman said, well, why were these people shot? They were only stealing, you see. So this, they rationalized this. So with the civil disobedience, which erodes respect for all law, and that's been proven in this nation by now, it better have been, or if we haven't learned the lesson there, we never will.
Do you think that what happened was simply a criminal manifestation of disrespect for law? Or do you see it as something related to the social and economic strivings of the Negro population?
I think all those factors are involved. I think that the most important recognition that we must give to this situation is that of the 600,000 Negroes who reside in the metropolitan area of Los Angeles, that the Watts riot involved less than 1%. And it is a mistake to group all of these people together because they don't deserve it and it would be inaccurate.
In creating the situation, where was the failure? On the part of the city, the county, the schools?
This, I think, is one of the difficulties in meeting this, is that we're trying to find a failure other than the people themselves. And this is a very dangerous move because it serves to sort of sanctify their acts on the basis you did something because of something we failed to do. In the first place, a great number of those people came from areas in the country where they were much further dislocated, much more seriously dislocated than they are here. They came in and flooded a community that wasn't prepared to meet them, despite the fact that we got all this relief money going in there. We didn't ask these people to come here. And suddenly they want a total community to adjust itself to a small segment that has suddenly come in and taken over a section. I think this is unreasonable. No, I think that we are almost sadistic in the way we're trying to punish ourselves over this thing without realizing what we have destroyed is a sense of responsibility for our own acts. We have developed a permissive, materialistic society in where everybody is the victim of their environment, and therefore they're not to be held responsible for anything, and if you can continue to live in that society, good luck to you.
Parker's anger is shared by many, perhaps most whites. His stand is supported by many of them, nearly 120,000 of whom have addressed letters and telegrams to him personally, 99% favorable. Parker believes disrespect for the law imperils the nation. But, says the Negro community, who can respect law that is divorced from justice? As an attorney in the civil rights movement.
During this entire incident, we've heard constant references to respect for law and order. And more particularly, what they mean is respect for law enforcement. Now, to really understand the problems of these people, you'd have to understand what law enforcement has meant to them for 100 years. And we're talking about the white man's law enforcement that's responsible for many of their parents being chased out of the South on one pretext or another. The white man's law enforcement that has resulted in no one being actually prosecuted and convicted for the murder of Medgar Evers, the murder of the 3 civil rights workers, and the murder of Mrs. Luiso. Under those conditions, you can understand that the people aren't going to be reverent about law enforcement and the men who enforce the law.
Over and over, Negroes repeat the charge of police brutality. One who had pressed a number of brutality complaints and one of the most successful attorneys in Los Angeles is a Negro, Leo Branton. We asked him about the police claim that brutality charges are fully and fairly investigated.
Well, in theory, there are avenues of complaint open, but there are no meaningful avenues to redress the grievances of these people. I've tried them all, and I can say to you that there is no question but that under the present machinery as it exists and as it is being operated today, a complaint of police brutality by any Negro citizen goes almost completely unheeded, because the instances of attention that are given to these complaints are laughable. Now, it's been said that people can bring complaints to the police commission. And the police commission is the boss of the police chief and the entire police department. Well, this isn't so. I don't think that people would be agitating for an independent police review board if the existing police commission carried out the functions that it was intended to carry out. In the first place, you make a complaint before the police commission. Who investigates it on behalf of the police commission? Police officers.
To this repeated complaint of the Negro community, the McCone report responded by recommending that the police commission be overhauled to strengthen its authority over the department. The report rejected the idea of a civilian review board, but did recommend creation of a new post of inspector general, free of routine duties, outside the regular channels of the department, to investigate citizen complaints of police mistreatment and report directly to the chief. The report recommends also a vastly expanded community relations program to close the admitted breach between Negroes and police. Robert Richardson was a messenger for the Los Angeles Times when the riot began. His accounts of the rioting got him a Cub Reporters rating and a job as the Times' first Negro reporter.
Let me clear up something for you. When we speak of police brutality, we don't necessarily mean officers beating people as, say, they would do in the South with whips or cattle prods. We mean brutality to a man's dignity. We mean the derogatory terms that are used directed to a person. When a policeman can't tell a housewife from a prostitute. When you're walking down the street with your girl and a policeman comes along and has you stand against a wall with your feet apart and checks you out and calls down on you and asks you what you're doing out so late at night. You have to have an explanation for everything. This is what we mean by police brutality. People have come out here from the South encounter another problem even more serious than police brutality and job opportunity and job discrimination and things like this. This is a problem of the resentment of the middle-class Negro, of the poor Southerner who comes out here. The middle-class Negro believes that these people lower their standards, bring down their educational standards, and lower their reflection as a race completely. So it's one large vicious circle. The poor southern Negro is moving into this area. The middle-class Negro is moving into a predominantly white neighborhood, and the whites in that neighborhood are moving farther out. In other words, it's going around and around and around, and where it's going to end, I really don't know.
Watts, Riot or Revolt, with more findings of the McCone Commission, will continue after this message. CBS reports Watts, Riot or Revolt continues.
Theirs, they say, is a different world about which white Americans have bothered to learn very little. Indeed, the first thorough study of Negroes and how they live in this country was completed only a few months ago. Our government, which conducts detailed surveys of everything from sugar beets in Colorado to social habits in Cambodia, had never before taken a close look at the 21 million Negroes of America. Daniel Moynihan, until this summer Assistant Secretary of Labor, was in charge of the study and was staggered by it. Moynihan says the Negro family structure is collapsing, and we asked him the reasons.
The first is, remember that American slavery was the worst slavery the world has ever known. We can't get that into our heads because the standard of living of the slaves was high, perhaps. We don't see how awful it was. We deprived them of the sacraments as Christians. We deprived them of any institutions as family life. We deprived them of any rights as human beings. There's a very long and complicated history, but we did. There's no other slavery like it in history. And there was no Negro family at all in the slave world. Secondly, segregation and the great humiliations of Jim Crow was a brutal assault on the personal integrity of the Negro male. I mean, he was the man who took the brunt of it. Thirdly, urbanization poured into the cities. Don't forget, the Negroes of our time, because they're Americans, we don't see them as immigrants. The Negroes in Watts were immigrants, just as much as the Italians or Irish or whatever who poured into the cities in the 19th century. And it wasn't a very pretty sight in New York in 1870 either, let me tell you. The families break up when they leave countrysides, rural peasant life, and sort of dump into slums. Fourthly, unemployment. We have had 35 years of disastrous unemployment and for the Negro male. He has never gotten over the Depression. He had 4 fair to middling years in the Second World War and maybe a good year in the Korean War, and that's it. It's getting better just recently. But by and large, it's been going on beyond the imagining in the white world. I mean, rates of unemployment, teenage unemployment in the white world, in the Negro world today is almost 25%. Can you imagine that? That is a social crime. That's an outrage. There isn't a society in the world which will let 25% of teenagers go unemployed. About a quarter of Negro families are headed by women. The divorce rate is 2.5 times what it is. And all of the number of fatherless children keeps growing. And all these things getting worse, not better, over recent years. It's not a matter of a bad situation that doesn't improve, but rather a bad situation that worsens. Got to get that clear. It's getting worse. How'd you learn how to behave? From your father and your mother and your older sisters, maybe, and the people around you. Well, supposing there is no father, or if he is a father, he doesn't work, where there is no education, where there's no sense of getting ahead, where children are just brought up without any of that support which a family gives it, then what do you end up with? You end up a cycle reproducing itself.
A UCLA study published within the last 2 weeks examined the background of young Negroes arrested during the riots. It established the typical rioter as a 17-year-old boy, a school dropout from a fatherless home, living on a total family income of $300 per month. One such walking statistic is this young man, whose cool world is kept that way by occasional bouts with liquor and with drugs. On the nights of the riot, revenge was an added ingredient. Although he denied to the police any part in the looting and rioting, he took me on a tour of some of the places he said he helped to burn, as casual as a stroll in the park. What this young man had to say reflected a common attitude among the youthful rioters.
I threw the firebomb right in the front window, A friend of mine went in the store towards the back, and threw a firebomb in the back, and the place went up in flames. But it was pretty well emptied by the looters and so forth.
There isn't much left, is there?
There is a burned up shirt and so forth that could have been gotten, could have been used.
But most things were taken out before you burned.
As much as we could possibly give. Then we would decide to burn, and the cry in the streets was, burn, baby, burn.
Why would you burn out this kind of place?
We decided to burn this store because we felt this man hadn't been doing nothing but gaming on us anyway.
When you say that this man was gaming you, gypping you, do you know that for a fact?
This man and every other Jew up and down the street, other than the rummage sales owned by Negroes who do not have nothing in them.
Why do you say over and over Jews around here? Do you feel that way about Jews?
I will not only say Jews, it would be fair to say that I hate all whites, period, point blank.
What else happened in this block?
Well, after we had got what we had gotten out of these stores, we went and disposed of it, stashed it. Then we arrived back to get as much as we could possible. We decided to get this salon company up here, this pine shop where this white dog works there that gyps people. Matter of fact, he gypped me. I brought an $82 radio that I had bought and hadn't had over 2 months, and I brought it here, and it was in excellent condition. He gave me $7 for it. He wanted to give me $5. He gave me $7.
Do you think that's why most people took part in the looting and the burning, because of one grievance from some time in the past?
Yes, from some grievance to some times in the past, regardless of whether it was relating from a pawn shop or going to a store or what have you. Someone in to get even, such as I, because I call myself getting even by going in this store and taking whatever I could take out of it. And I got some pretty wonderful things out of this place. Some pretty wonderful things. And I liked it.
And it was Sunday when you were arrested, right near here?
Yes. I was on my way to a friend of mine's house, and a police car circled this corner here, and the officers got out of their cars and approached us at gunpoint and told us to put our hands up and immediately hit the fence like this. And at the time they lined us up, they held us at gunpoint continuously, and then this white police officer approached me and asked me, well, black nigga, when are you gonna let us kill you? So I replied to him, I'm not going to let you kill me because I'm no sniper or nothing. I'm not going to be out there doing any wrong, trying to, you know, put myself in a good position, because I knew that these white people were mad that we were taken to the jailhouse, and I asked them, what was I going to be booked on? And they couldn't tell me. They didn't say nothing. All they did was wrote me up for burglary and looting, and I was arrested in a residential area. As you can see right now here, there's no stores, anything. There's nothing but houses.
How long were you in jail?
I was in jail a month, a solid month. It could have been longer, but I had a little money, which helped me get out.
So you bailed out?
I didn't bail out. I beat my case completely. I had it thrown out of court, all charges dismissed.
Think it's going to happen again?
Yes, I do think it will happen again, but under a different situation. It will be better organized this time, and it will probably be more or less a surprise attack. I feel that it will break out unless the white man himself changes. If he changes and shows some type of other response to the way that he treats us around here, there will not be any riot, because these people around here are willing to accept anything good, anything negative and bad, they will respond to it, because this is what they've been taught around here from teenage on up. They've been in gangs. They're 28 and 29-year-old people who have been in gangs and have developed attitudes that they have developed behind the way that they've came up. And I feel definitely that this most likely and most probably will break out again.
If this young man is the living product of the ravaged Negro family institution described by Daniel Moynihan, Stanley Sanders is evidence of what a strong family can produce. His father, Hayes Sanders, recently retired after 33 years as a city truck driver, raised his family in the Watts area. Stanley, his sister, and his brothers, one of whom was an Olympic heavyweight boxing champion, were born in this house. A Rhodes Scholar, the third Negro ever to be so honored, Stanley now is at Yale Law School, but he was home during the riots. What made the difference between you and between most of the other young men?
I think the most important differences in my own life were the influences from my family and the special attention that I got in high school. In the Sanders family, we were always encouraged to go on to the university, and we were always taught to compete on any level with anybody.
What is your feeling about the people who took part, particularly the young men? A lot of them must have been men you knew. Why did they do it, and what did they say about why they were doing it?
Well, I think that my particular age group, Negro, male between the ages of 18 and 24, is probably the one most distressed group in the United States of the country, certainly in the Watts area here in Los Angeles. They are most likely to be unemployed. In this particular area, they're either high school dropouts or high school graduates with very little skills, very few skills. And I think also there's the business of South Vietnam and how this affects the draft and economic means. I think all these combine to produce a frustration on the part of the young men in this particular area of the city.
The thinking of the entire nation must be changed as the goals of the Negro community move from liberty to equality, says Daniel Moynihan.
No group in our society is satisfied if for many, many years, for generations, the competitions of life always end up with them as the losers. Now, equality isn't a demand that everybody live the same. That's a flat level of existence. That's not the thing at all. What is true is a demand that, given one group of people, that you distribute success and failure and distinction and anonymity and affluence and poverty about the same way it's distributed in other groups. We've got to get men to work. A man can't run his family if he doesn't have a job. It just starts there. Is there any secret to that? I mean, do you have to have sociologists tell this country that? No. Creating jobs for men is no secret about it. We know how to do it. We've just got to get it clear in our minds. Either we do it, or we're going to spoil this beautiful country of ours. And that means spoiling those pretty white suburbs just as much as spoiling those nasty and ugly places like Watts.
Moynihan speaks of the situation confronting our nation. The McCone Commission sought to answer questions about Watts. Was the riot planned? The commission finds no facts to support that conclusion, nor any evidence of communist activity. Did police brutality play a part in the outbreak? Yes. Some real incidents and some imagined, says the commission, are at the roots of the deep distrust between police and Negroes. Did Negro hooliganism and provocation play a role in the riots and in the mood that led to them? Yes, says the commission, and the little organization which fed the flames was led by gangs of angry young Negroes. Was it a revolt, not just a riot? Yes, in the sense that it was a formless, hopeless striking out against current conditions in the community. And can it happen again? So serious and explosive is the situation, says the commission, that unless it is checked, the August riots may be only a curtain raiser to what could blow up one day in the future. It is that very fact which accounts for the disappointment among some responsible Negro leaders. Dramatic proposals and immediate measures are needed, they feel, to calm those rioting Negroes for whom nobody spoke. Long-range plans to give job training to thousands of Negroes, a crash program of schooling for Negro youngsters, may guarantee the future, they say, but the need is desperate and the need is now. A crisis in our country, says the McCone Commission, and government alone cannot render a cure-all. Help from private employers, from labor unions, from Negroes themselves, emergency. We would conclude this report with these final lines from the Commission. What shall it avail our nation if we can place a man on the moon, but cannot cure the sickness in our cities? This is Bill Stout for CBS Reports in Los Angeles. Good night.
CBS Reports, Watts, Riot or Revolt, has been filmed and edited by the staff of CBS Reports under the supervision and control of CBS News. Next Tuesday. Tuesday night, the CBS News special report, Where We Stand in Vietnam. An assessment of the impact of the mounting American commitment in Vietnam, combining the reporting and analysis of 6 key CBS News correspondents and the results of a special CBS News National Public Opinion Survey. That's Where We Stand in Vietnam, a CBS News special report, next Tuesday night at 10, 9 Central Time.